Hi BookTube. Today I'm going to talk about this book, The Lesser Bohemians by Eimear McBride. Now McBride's debut novel is called A Girl is a Half-Formed Thing, which won both the Bailey's, now called the Women's Fiction Prize, and also the Goldsmith Prize, which is for radical writing in theory. What I'd heard about her was that she has a distinct writing style in how she uses language and grammar and things like that. So that's what attracted me to want to read one of her books. And having read the blurbs, rather than The Girl is a Half-Formed Thing, I picked The Lesser Bohemians. And it's true, her writing is sort of quite idiosyncratic and of her own, because I believe it's a similar style in here as to the debut novel. So that can consist of strange sort of words sort of not being used, so that it's almost as though a word is dropped out of a sentence. And when she writes dialogue, there's no speech marks, and different people's speech can be broken up just by they will appear on the same line, but there'll just be a sort of a space between them to show that someone else is speaking. It's almost as though they're sort of composing their thoughts, or they're sort of stumbling, stuttering to say what they want. And I think that's quite effective. It's interesting, I think, that particularly when she's going deep inside the character, when the character is struggling to come to as I say, to put their thoughts together, that's when the words are sort of missing in the sentence, or it's a sort of a snap judgment or a description of something external, but it's not a neutral description. The character puts a value judgment on it, and that is all expressed in this technique. And as I say, I think it's quite effective. So I do think this book is extremely well written, but for all that, it was an incredible slog for me to read. Now, by a slog, I don't mean the sort of the number of pages, because it's only 320. And it wasn't the language. I didn't find her style off-putting, and I didn't have to look up any words in the dictionary. She didn't use any words I didn't already know, so it's not a slog in that term. It's not a dense novel particularly. No, the slog for me came from the characters and the plot. But before I go into that, I just want to issue a content warning, because I'm going to go on and talk about the sex in this book. Which is inevitable, because the first 150 pages are almost nothing but. So if you could be offended by that, then I suggest please stop watching now. And I also suggest probably don't go out and read this book. Okay, so the first 150 pages are about a couple. A young girl has come over from Ireland to study at drama school. She's 17 going on 18 at the start of this book, and the action of the book takes place over 18 months in London. And she meets in a pub this older guy who turns out is also an actor, who's 38 going on 39, and he's damaged. Now, it's my belief that she is damaged as well, but again, I will come back to that later in this video. And they start a relationship. It's not entirely clear if she's a virgin, but it's suggested that she's a virgin. There's a prohibition on sort of sex before marriage from her Catholic Irish background. The first time she has sex, it hurts. All these sorts of suggestions that she probably is a virgin. Whereas he is a male nymphomaniac. Of course, that word doesn't exist in the English language. You have a nymphomaniac who can only be female. Why is there no male equivalent? But anyway, he is a male version of a nymphomaniac. And the reasons he is like that is because he is a broken sort of, psyche. So the first 150 pages is almost non-stop sex. And that is how they relate to each other. That is how they communicate. There's very little else going on in those first 150 pages. Yes, it's sort of building up the, initially she has sort of reservations which he has to conquer. He's more experienced than she does, but then she sort of slowly unburdens and opens up more to sort of, wanting different things. So there's all that sort of standard stuff, but it's more than that. These characters cannot communicate by any other method other than sex. So it's not just that flush of a new romance where you just, you want to be with each other, all the time and have sex all the time. It is that, but it's more than that, because sometimes the sex, or quite often the sex, is really unappealing because they are playing out their personal agendas on each other, their crackedness, their personal histories. So one of them might want sex there and then in such a way is because they're angry and they want to sort of purge that anger on the body of the other. Or they might be feeling remorseful or guilty, so they want to purge their own guilt, and by again through sex. This is what I say. The only way they can seem to relate is through sex. The only way they can communicate, the only way they can even communicate with themselves is through sex, and it's desultory sex in many cases. This is why I wonder if this is to do with my age. I'm in my 50s. Do I really want to be reading about, and they're not even young love because he's 38, 39. Do I really want to be reading about the first flush of love? I don't, I poured on because, maybe there was justification for it in the rest of the book. Because after page 150, for the next 50 pages, there's a sort of confession or a backstory of the man as to why he is like he is. And interestingly, that is told absolutely straight. There's none of her sort of linguistic and stylistic flourishes or the grammatical flourishes. It's absolutely straight reportage. And the girl almost disappears in terms of being written about. She's just a listening ear. But it is progress because it's the first time he's told his full story to anyone. It's the first time they're talking to each other properly. It's a true intimacy in his confession. And it's a story of childhood abuse. He was abused as a child, both physically and sexually, by a parent. But somehow he's such a reprehensible character that I didn't really have any, it didn't make it all right that this is where he comes from to be where he is by the start of this book. For someone who has suffered trauma, I just didn't find it sort of redeeming for him. And the other issue I had is I think she's as cracked at age 18 as he was at age 18. But she's not given any, her backstory isn't really given any time. She's given 2 pages soon after those 50 pages for him, where it's sort of implied what sort of background she comes from, what her relationship with her mother, and this whole prescription on sex thing is. But that's 2 pages, whereas he's given 50. And then the rest of the book is, can their relationship survive with that knowledge? But also, can their relationship survive because it's not built on anything? It's pretty hollow, really. It has only been about the sex and about purging all these sort of quite sort of, nefarious, emotions and past history. Then there's another slightly troubling aspect, that one of the aspects of his story is that basically he had a partner with whom he had a child. And his destructive behaviour broke up that relationship, and the mother sort of wanted to punish him, so she went off to Canada with a new partner, taking the child with her, which effectively meant that he'd lost his child because he wasn't really, obviously he wasn't living in the same country, and the mother pretty much stopped him having any access to the child at all, phone calls, only letters. That's all he had, and the only true emotion that he is capable of expressing in this book, because as much as he loves the Irish girl, he's also playing out things through her, which isn't, I don't believe, love. It's sort of self-involvement rather than genuine otherness. But the only genuine emotion he feels is about his daughter. And of course, she's got to a stage where she's the same age or very similar age to the girl here. And that sort of raises further questions. Well, is he only sort of going with her because he's playing out something in his head about his daughter? So I actually found all this, A, quite conventional, but B, quite troubling. And I didn't really want to read about these characters. I mean, I did plough on through to the end because I rarely give up books, but I just didn't get any value at all from this book. So I'm just going to give you some examples. It's called The Lesser Bohemians. Now, when you use the word bohemian, you think, sort of exotic and living life to the full or in interesting ways. And it's interesting she's called it Lesser Bohemians because they're not remarkable people at all. They're both actors, or one's a would-be actor. But actually, they're just the same as most people, most screw-ups. So, for example, there's a constant push me, pull you, because he continues to sleep with other women. You know, even when he's with this girl, they're constantly breaking up and getting back together again. And when she's in a period without him, such is her addiction to him, which again I think is unhealthy. Not only in the sense of it's unhealthy for her, which it is, but it's unhealthy. That's what you're being offered in this book as the female role in this. I think it's a little worrying. But anyway, so, you know, she can't cope without him. So what she do is she gets blitzed on drink and drugs, and she too starts screwing around because she's out of her mind and she's out of control. And again, it's like, you know, does that make you bohemian? No, that just makes you inadequate, to my mind, you know. All the stuff about his history, as you know, as many people would find that really, really upsetting, and it is upsetting, you know, by any sort of rational sort of judgment. But that, you know, again, the 50-year-old me feels, well, you know, he has had therapy for it, he has been hospitalised for it. There comes a time where you have to own it. There comes a time where you have to stop blaming the parents. He's a 38-year-old man. It will always hold him back if he clings to that baggage. Now, it's easy for me to say, but it's, again, I found it worrying that was the message, and it wasn't one that I really wanted to. You know, it's not that I never want to read books like that. I just think that, you know, this book wasn't strong enough to make that interesting and credible. So, you know, after the first 150 pages of sex, then the 50 pages of confession from him, the 2 pages of confession from her, then, you know, the rest of the book is, well, you know, will love triumph, will love conquer all, and they live happily ever after, and she redeems him of all this broken stuff, which I wouldn't find believable for 1 minute. Or do they, you know, split apart and go their separate ways, as, you know, in a sort of desultory fashion, in which case you wonder, well, why have we been exposed to this? So neither resolution seems to me to offer a sort of satisfactory read. I mean, obviously there are shades within those, and I'm not going to spoil it which one it ends up with, but again, I just didn't feel it offered anything to sort of pull the book round, you know, to a sort of blinding revelation. So, as I say, I'm just going to read some bits to sort of give you an idea of what I've been saying. So this is an example of them having sex, yes, in the flush of a new relationship, but also, you know, to purge various feelings that they're unable to work through themselves. So they work it through the body of the other. So he's just had a phone call from Canada. He's being offered the chance to. Sorry, I got the wrong bit. He's being offered the chance to go and visit her, which has obviously stirred up a whole lot of feelings in him, which I absolutely understand, because, you know, he's missed out on you know, 12 years of her life or whatever. She wants to meet. Whatever it is has to be done in person, apparently. So in principle, would I agree? Did you? Yes, of course I did, but she'll call with a date once she's booked her flight. You never know. It might be something good. No, whenever I've called that house, every conversation has finished with, I wish you were dead. So whatever it is, it won't be good. Are you all right? You look terrible. Yeah, it's just a shock. His face, a picture of, I don't know what, shifting into, fuck her. Of course she'd do it like that. Like what? Not just fucking saying what it's about, so now I'm left what? Just fucking wondering about what she's going to make me live without next. What can I do, I say? Nothing, love. Cup of tea? Breakfast? Actually, what? Anything. I could really use that fuck now. So that's how you're going to solve this, you know, or purge the moment of all this stuff that's been stirred up about your daughter. Is, you know, you're going to fuck another 18-year-old. But that also does give you an idea of as I say, you know, the writing when, you know, they're sort of reaching for sort of thoughts and emotions, and how she leaves out words. So I'm just going to read that bit again. Are you all right? You look terrible. Yeah, I'm space. It's just a shock space. His face, a picture of space. I don't know what, comma, shifting into, fuck her. So, you know, it is quite interesting writing from a stylistic point of view, but the overall tenor of the writing. And here's another example of it, which is kind of even worse, I think. So she has expressed an interest in anal sex with him. He has said, no, I'm not going to do that to you. That's, I love you too much. Actually, the reason behind his aversion to anal sex comes from his own sort of backstory, and it's quite sort of dodgy and prejudiced thinking, I think. But I'm not particularly going to get into that. So eventually, she has the power this particular night. So she persuades him that they're going to have anal sex. And after, he nurses me with his kisses and care, wipes off my tears, then whispers in through my hair, I've never been closer to anyone than you, and I've never loved anyone more. Shower, cheese on toast after that, cups of tea, Marlborough Red, the still of his flat and both slightly scared at the weave we are utterly in. On the floor, in the shell of his arms, I shake. All right, love? I think so. Did you like that? I did. And when you were me? Not as much. Does it always hurt? Not always, and there's things you can do. Like what? Doesn't matter, that was a once-off. You mean last tango-ish? Oh God, he laughs, that's all I need. How about a pint instead? OK, I'll bring my lines along, you can be on the book. Which means helping someone rehearse their lines for a play. So you've gone from, the tenderness of, I've never been closer to anyone than you, and I never loved anyone more. End of paragraph. And then we go to this bizarre paragraph of the most mundane shower, cheese on toast after that, cups of tea, Marlborough Red. Then they start discussing the anal sex they just had. And then in the same paragraph, it's like, oh, I can't talk about this anymore. Let's go to the pub for a pint. OK, well, if we're going to the pub, I'll bring my lines along. I find that utterly bizarre. And also, this is evidence why I think that, her story is more interesting. Her backstory is more interesting, why she is like she is, rather than why he is like he is. And McBride doesn't give us much on that. She won't allow oral sex. She won't take his penis into her mouth. But she's quite, keen to have, anal sex. Now, that's not, I'm not saying that's perverse or unnatural. But I think that shows a certain psychology, which would be worth exploring. And it's never really explained. He has issues about eating and starving himself and taking food into his mouth from his childhood with his mother that get reams of pages about that. But, if she has some sort of equivalence because she won't take anything into her mouth, we're never privy to why that should be. And then lastly, I just want to give an example of really good writing. So, his body is covered in scars, which is explained, through the book. Silvered nicks on his back that reflect the light. Were they cuts? And so many. I kneel down behind, bless the place with my lips. His body all battle. I mean, I love that. I think that's beautiful writing. So it's in here. But it's just deluged with this sort of trite, hollow, people who are not, they're actors, so they're used to sort of hiding or jumping into another persona as part of what they do. But unfortunately, until that 50-page stuff about his background, they're not very good at analysing themselves. Maybe they're too used to sort of, hiving themselves off into another persona. I don't know. So I found this book tough going. I didn't enjoy its themes. I didn't like the characters. There was no plot, really. It was just the relationship, the first flush of youth and they're all over each other. Then separation because they're or particularly he won't give up, shagging other women. Then she behaves badly without him. She gets drunk and all of that. Blah, 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 blah. It's and then it's a constant pull you, push me. Will they get together? Will they break apart? It's brilliantly written, and it's, if you like that sort of thing, this is amazingly well constructed. Their history, of their relationship over 1.5 years. I think you can appreciate that. I just wasn't interested. And I just want to read a final thing, which is not particular to her. I've come across this sort of thing quite a lot. And I just want to raise a question. This book is set somewhere where I lived in London in my 20s probably, so around similar age to the girl, sort of around Kentish Town, Tufnell Park, all around there. I push outside to the night that's day, to the street where I was before. I became what I've become, a form of a thing. What does it mean? Look into the sun and want to be safe. Down Chalk Farm Road, the marathon. If I could step back there, I'd choose to go home, but it's in me forever. The Roundhouse here, Safeways, Offstage, the Monarch, Moon Underwater, the Fusilier, Under Railway, over Canal, the Elephant's Head, Market Stalls, round the Tube to the Camden Road, Canal again, Cross beneath the Overground. Well, I know all of those landmarks. You know, the Marathon was my favourite, you know, late night kebab place that basically stayed open all through the night and served alcohol. Or, you know, it's not there. It's gone. Finally, it lost its licence, and I know sort of, you know, someone was stabbed there years ago. I mean, God knows how it stayed alive that long. The Roundhouse is the famous, you know, sort of performance space theatre. Call it what you want. Safeways, well, that's a relatively recent development. The Safeways, it's probably been there about 15 years now. Offstage is a dedicated bookshop for play scripts. Then you get into a list of pubs. Well, you know, that's all very well because I know them. But if you're not from London, or if you're not from that part of North London, it's just a list. And I want, you know, as I say, it's not particular to McBride. I've seen it done over and over and over again. When you're reading that, and you don't know any of these places, so you know, the Marathon, you're not going to know what that place means. You know, what's it like reading about it? Is it, you know, does it have any value for you at all? These are just names, you know, hollow shells that mean nothing. So I'm just curious, as you know, what you as readers feel about that. So there you have it. I'm Eimear McBride. I gave this 3 stars. You know, I couldn't give it any less because it's so well written, but equally I couldn't give it any more because I just wasn't engaged with it. So it was a tricky one in that respect. Would I go back and read her first one? No, I don't think I will. You know, I preferred the sound of this one to that one. I've seen what she does with style. I understand that the style in here is very similar to the style in that one, and I like it, but in and of itself, it's not enough. Okay, so thanks very much. Till next time.